Hello, hello, hello. This is Tamika Peters, President and CEO of Grow Your Nonprofit. We will help startups, small and stagnant nonprofits grow through fundraising strategies, strategic planning, and so much more. Guys, today you're in for a treat. I have PACE Center for Girls, both Lee and Collier counties. Sharon, she is with Collier County. She's the development manager. And we have Margo. She's also the development manager with Lee County PACE Center for Girls. But before we get started, I'd like to thank the sponsors of my podcast. Hodges University with a campus in Fort Myers. Stay near, go far. They change lives for the better. Trinity Life Foundation Naples, helping at-risk youth through their enrichment program. AVID. That stands for the Associations of Haitians Living Abroad. They just opened an amazing support center right here in the beautiful Fort Myers, where they will help you with immigration support, utility billing, English as a second language, and so much more. Last but not least, Vaxtruth. They received a grant from the CDC to raise awareness of COVID-19 and vaccine resources in the Black and Brown communities. So, guys, like I said, Sharon and Margo, how are you guys doing, ladies?
Doing wonderful. Thank you so much for having us today.
Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule, especially driving from Collier County, Sharon. I know I lived in Collier County 15 years, and it is quite a hike, but it's worth it. It was worth it, right?
It is. I love coming back to Fort Myers. I used to live here, so it's nice to come back every once in a while.
That's wonderful. And I really have to thank Margo. She had the longest trek over here. It took her all of, 45 seconds to get here?
Across the street, basically. Yes.
Yeah. So she's one of our amazing neighbors here on Evans Avenue. So that is so great. So thank you, ladies, so much for being here. I know the nonprofit world can be very challenging with staffing and fulfilling our mission. So thank you so much for what you guys do. You guys do make a big impact in the community. So PACE Center for Girls, I saw that the organization has been around since 1985 and was founded in Jacksonville, Florida, which is amazing. It's a national organization with over 20 locations throughout the country. And I know there may be some talks of making it a global organization, which is really great. I also understand that you've helped probably over 3,000 girls annually and over 40,000 girls to date. So with that said, let's start with telling our audience a little bit about yourself, Sharon. What's your background and how did you get into the nonprofit world?
Yes, thank you. My background is actually varied. My career history was 30 years in the fashion industry before I shifted over to nonprofit work. During the pandemic, it led an opportunity for me to change my career focus. And when I looked at what I wanted to do, it was really about, I saw my resume was as long in doing nonprofit volunteer work as it was doing for-profit work. And I said, now is the time to give back. And I had been partnering with PACE on their events for over 10 years, and it seemed like just a perfect fit, and they had the opportunity. And today actually is my second anniversary with PACE. So.
Whoa, congratulations! That's so awesome.
Yes.
Wow.
So that's been really remarkable. You know, obviously there's things to learn, but things to contribute at the same time. And it's been a wonderful journey, meeting people out in the community and then just seeing the transformation that happens with our girls.
Wow, that's amazing. So the girls are really fortunate because they not only receive your expertise with development and helping raise money for the organization, but do you also give fashion tips?
We do have some. We just had prom this summer, so I was able to help with the dresses and assorting, and I was able to get some community support for hair and makeup, and using some different connections, we had an amazing day for the girls, and it was our first prom since the pandemic started, so it was really a joyous time for the girls.
That sounds like so much fun. Margo, would you please share with us your background and how did you come to get into the nonprofit sector?
So I was born and raised here in Fort Myers, and I was actually out of high school, just started working at a local bank. I was doing mortgages actually, and kind of hated it, not gonna lie. And really, as I was doing that and out in the community, I was serving on different events, and I was actually volunteering at PACE. And I just started to realize, I think similar to you, like I just really want to give back to the community. It's great being in this corporate corporate world, but I really just want to be serving the community and being out and involved and helping and giving back. And so I just started getting into development and, knew I had been serving on event committees at the chamber and things like that. And so started working at the local school foundation and still volunteering at PACE. And then it just, again, was similar to you also, just kind of a natural fit. I had been doing events and helping so much around the center already. So I just, I came onto the team about 5 years ago now.
Wow.
So,
Wow, that's really cool. Yeah, I actually was working in the city of Naples. And I would always go to networking events, and like you guys, I would serve on committees and volunteer so much. Some of the people in the community thought I worked for some of the nonprofits. And when the shelter CEO approached me about a new development position, I'm like, well, I don't know anything about fundraising. Like, why me? And she was like, you kind of already fundraising.
Doing it.
And I didn't realize I was doing it because it was so much fun. So it is fulfilling. So I understand what you guys feel, because I walked away from FRS and a pension plan, and everyone thought I was nuts. Like, why would you go work in the nonprofit world? But they don't understand. I mean, it feels so good, knowing the work that you're doing. You're changing lives. So that's amazing. So I like how this interview happened. Our business development person for Grow Your Nonprofit, Kelly Affle, arranged this podcast. She originally reached out to Sharon, and Sharon and I had a conversation about the podcast. And she mentioned, well, do you mind, I'm in Collier County, do you mind if our Lee County counterpart comes on? And I was like, that's great. So that leads me into the conversation about collaboration. I think that's important. I know you guys are the same organization, however, in different counties, and that could sort of lead to, in some mindsets, competition. But I know that's not the case. So tell us about the importance of collaboration and how you've seen that has benefited your organization, not only just internally, because you have over 24 locations, but also if you collaborate with other nonprofits or businesses, anyone.
Sure. Yeah, I'll start and Margo will jump in. So PACE, we are one organization, and while we do have the 21 centers in Florida, just because of proximity, it's just a nice collaborative environment, and we'll support each other. Like right now, I have a car full of period supplies because we got a wonderful donation for those, and Lee needed some, and so we're dropping those off. Like I mentioned with the prom, they had some extra dresses from their prom, so our girls were able to utilize some of the dresses from here. So, and then we, anytime we have an event, I'm always like, Margo, let's have a conversation afterwards so we can
this brain dump.
Let's brain dump and see what worked, what didn't work, and so that we help each other create more effective fundraiser events as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome, because I know before we started recording, you asked Margo about an upcoming event they're having, and that you wanted to purchase a ticket. And I was like, that's really cool. That is so cool that we're supporting each other. Margo, can you elaborate on the conversation about the importance of collaboration and how it can benefit your organization?
Yeah, I completely agree. And, I think just beyond us being close in proximity, I feel like we're friends. We have a whole group of all the development managers across the state that, we have this group chat where we're like, hey, we're getting ready to do a capital campaign. Any ideas? And everybody kind of contributes across the state, because, what someone's doing in Jacksonville may be totally, different than what we're doing here. And so I think just being friends and communicating all the time just really helps bring fresh new ideas and input into what we're doing. And then you did mention a little bit too, just even outside of PACE, one of our guiding principles is creating partnerships. Right. And so that is just at the heart of what we do. And, we're all working towards the same collective goal of helping these young women and these girls recover from whatever it is they've been facing. And so if there's somebody else in the community that can be a part of that journey with us, absolutely. Like, let's do this. Let's help the girls and make it happen.
And I think that, does that come from the top? Because I know if leadership encourages that makes a huge impact.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that was part of it. Was great to get everyone together in our development retreat back in June, and that was the mantra of the whole thing is, we want to make sure you all know each other so that you can collaborate and benefit from each other's succces.
Wow.
And learn from each other's challenges. Not just
the failures count just as much. Exactly.
Failures are where the lessons are, really.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
Right.
Absolutely.
How about collaboration with other nonprofits or other businesses? You mentioned Sharon Period Supplies. Was that the Period?
Yeah, Alliance for Period.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's a wonderful collaboration we have. Pan Florida Challenge. We receive food from. Even the Guadalupe Center. People might think that, again, that might be a more difficult type of relationship because we're doing things in the same space, but we partner with them at Thanksgiving with our turkeys and providing full meals for our girls' families. So it can come from a variety of different networks. We are 100% open to partnering with anyone in that space.
I actually think the way that it came about that you are dropping off supplies me is a perfect example of that collaboration because I was looking for those for our center. I saw the Pace Collier logo on the Period Alliance website, and I'm like, let me just check in with Sharon and see. She says, yes, actually, we have an overabundance of supplies. I'm going to see you in a couple weeks. I'll bring them. And so that is like the amount of times that happens, where it's just like, hey, congrats, saw your logo. Hey, saw you, Lee is doing XYZ. And it's, it's just year round. Yeah.
So if an organization isn't collaborating, what are some of the first steps they could take in order to start collaborating with other nonprofits and for-profit businesses?
I think sitting down and having the conversation. A lot of the nonprofits that I've interacted with I've met at networking events. So most of the time, you're not going to be the only nonprofit there.
Right.
Volunteer Expos is another one. The Naples Chamber does a big volunteer expo every November.
Yeah.
And, it's going around and saying, hey, what do you do? How can we partner?
I like that. That's very good. The Volunteer Expo, I know that's coming up in November. Is it still at the Coastal Incident Hall?
It is. Yep.
Okay, that's very
November
good.
8th, so we'll be there.
So you guys hear that? November 8th, that's an opportunity for nonprofits to collaborate at the Expo in Collier County at the Coastal Center Mall. And just like Margo and Sharon mentioned, just introduce yourself. Don't be scared. Not everyone has a competitive mindset, and if they do, then maybe go to the next organization, and that's okay. So with that said, you mentioned Margo. You have 9 core principles, and then the principle to create partnerships. That's number 8. So another core principle I really like was number 9. Invest in the future. What does that mean for Pace Center for Girls?
Okay. I mean, I can tell you what I think it means to me. Everything we're doing with our girls is investing in their futures and helping, because when our girls can be successful, when they can go on to graduate and go to college, go to vocational school, the whole community benefits, right? And so so many of them, probably most of them, are staying right here locally. They're becoming the next bankers and teachers, and so many of them even want to come back and work at Pace, or they want to be a therapist, or social worker. And so that's it's investing in their future. It's investing in the future of our community, of everybody, even their families. So many of them are breaking generational poverty and these cycles that they have faced for many generations. And so it's changing the future for that girl to start, and this ripple effect of their families and friends and peers and the whole community.
I
agree 100%.
I think that's very important in Southwest Florida, because a lot of people maybe get educated and they go away, and all that's a lost talent, lost capital. So I know that's one of FGCU's motto is to try and keep them here and get them involved with internships and then eventually hired with the companies so that we can continue organically growing our economy here. And we know it's grown since COVID, which was a real surprise that it grew, and we thought things did shut down, but it increased property values and people learned they could work remotely and moved here. So with that said, how was PACE Center for Girls able to overcome the challenge of COVID-19? We were shut down because I know a lot of nonprofits had events planned. Those had to be shut down. Some nonprofits were savvy. They had the virtual events. I know some of my clients I work with, they actually raise more money during the virtual events because, we don't have those expenses related. So can you guys share with us how you guys were able to overcome COVID and the slowdown and still communicating with your donors to stay sustainable in serving your participants?
I think a lot of that is revolving around the relationships and the relationships before COVID. It was not about just the relationships that happened within COVID. And people understood what we were going through, understood what our girls were going through during COVID times. And it was so hard on the girls in the way that they were learning. And so everybody could identify with the struggles that were happening. And so reaching out to our key partners and our key relationships, we were able to solicit the same. I think it was right before I was hired, but we had to cancel our Believing in Girls luncheon, I think, weeks before the event was supposed to happen. And so all the sponsors stayed. Awesome. That was a big contribution that really lifted the center and allowed them to keep functioning at the time. And then another, Collier's Reserve, did a huge fundraiser for us that year, and that was, it kept the lights on. It was a wonderful opportunity to see that liaison without having to be in person.
Right.
Now, we love being in person, so I'm not going to say that we don't love the fact that we've been able to hold our in-person events again, but it's the strength of relationships that really catapulted and allowed us to continue.
Completely agree.
Yeah. So also we mentioned COVID. Okay, Hurricane Ian. We know we're in the midst of a hurricane season right now. And not just these natural disasters, not just the pandemic. I think organizations, for-profit and nonprofit, should always have diversified funding so that you stay sustainable, because just like the stock market, things go up and down.
Yeah.
So Margo, with that said, we're specifically talking about Hurricane Ian. How was your organization able to continue communicating with donors and not losing any donors and continuing with your program?
Yeah, you said it, diversified funding. I think when you were talking, I thought our COVID changed the landscape of our fundraising. I feel, just at our center at least, we relied so heavily on events. That was just the core of our fundraising model, and COVID changed that. There was 2.5 years of just not a full event like we used to do. And so we've really shifted. We've got a lot more grant funding, a lot more corporate partnerships as well has really grown. Just reaching out to people in the community that have a similar, even just their business. Oh, we need new laptops. Let's see what kind of technology companies are out there, or cell phones, or, whatever it may be. And so just diversifying that. And we were so fortunate because after the hurricane, our board members, the people that are kind of our core supporters, were just like, how can we help? How can we help? We sent an email like the week of, within days saying, we hear you. We know you want to help. Here's a link to go ahead and donate now. Yeah. We will have a list for you very soon. We just did a supply drive just to meet, those basic needs for our girls. But yeah, we were just, the relationships were there, and they were just ready to ask how they could help.
And you were so much more significantly hit by it than we were out in Immokalee. So we're thankful that we brushed by that one.
Yes, you
So you ladies both mentioned the mindset shift with COVID as well as Hurricane Ian, but however you're having the events. So tell me how your events are different now, and because you mentioned you also share ideas after the event to learn from the good, the bad, and the ugly. So how are we making our events in a way where we're being as efficient as possible? Maybe some things you did differently than you used to do in the past.
I think our events are really celebrating the relationships that we've had.
Celebrating the relationships.
Because
instead of just a party,
it's
right?
not just a party. It's obviously our luncheon highlights the girls, and it's a really beautiful moment to bring the community of Immokalee really into the Naples area so that people can meet and have conversations with our girls and be present. But it's also about, it's not fighting for people to attend. They want to attend because they've been with us, through the journey. So that, I think, it makes it just one big celebration of everybody getting together.
I like that.
Yeah, intentionality, right? Like, so our events are a celebration. It's like, who are we getting here? What is the point of this event? It's not just this big party anymore. It's like, what are we really trying to accomplish with this event? And we, both of our centers eliminated some pretty big events through COVID, and now it's like, let's just focus on these 2 or 3 really big intentional events each year that are going to drive home the mission and our girls and their stories. So,
So before we wrap up, I told you the time goes by so fast. Transactional donors, as we know, events bring in the transactional donors because of the sponsorships. The sponsorships come with tickets, or people have purchased tickets because maybe someone's asked them to purchase tickets. So what does your organization do to turn those transactional donors into lifelong donors? Because I know sometimes after the event, we're happy it's over and we get ready to plan the next event.
It's busy for sure after events. Making sure we thank our supporters. That's the first and foremost after an event, to drive home how much we appreciate them at the end of the day. But we also work to then turn and have them come to the center for a tour, be involved, and really see a little bit more about the whole scope of what the work that we're doing.
I think that's very important.
Yeah. Our Pathways to PACE session, it's a monthly tour. That's like our first step in the door. We invite everyone. And something we started this year is all of those donors who did have maybe a smaller transaction or something, we put them on a prospect list and we distributed that to our board. And so then our board members kind of take ownership of those that they know or have that relationship with, and say, okay, let's invite them to a tour. How do we start getting them involved? Let's get them on an event committee. And we kind of put it on our board members a lot too, to kind of,
I like that.
Own that.
I like that.
I like that
that's
too.
great. That's great, because having your board members involved and engaged is very important. So before we wrap up, can you please share with us, I guess individually, if someone wanted to reach out to you and donate $1 million to each of your organizations? It'll appear on your screen if you would like to leave your name or your website, your telephone number, whatever information you feel comfortable leaving, it'll show up on the screen.
Sure.
We'll start with you, Sharon.
Sure. So Sharon Tolnai, I'm the development manager for Collier. You can reach me at 239-470-3104 or Sharon.Tolnai, Tolnai, at pacecenter.org. Would love to sit down and have a conversation.
Yeah. And Margo Brewster, development manager at Pace Lee. My cell phone is 239-462-8068, and email address margo.brewster@pacecenter.org.
Alrighty. Thank you so much, ladies. Thank you, Sharon and Margo, for taking the time again out of your busy schedule to bless us with your presence, your knowledge at the Grow Your Nonprofit podcast. Guys, you heard it here. One, but really 2 kind of nonprofits. We got We killed two birds with one stone, doing amazing things in the community with girls, impacting their lives with their 9 core principles. I hope that you learned something about the importance of collaboration, donor engagement, follow-up after your event, and partnerships. You saw how they really shifted their mindset after Hurricane Ian and the pandemic with their approach, eliminating some of their events and really appreciating and celebrating not only the girls they serve, but also the donors, and not just having the transactional donors, getting your board members involved in the process and engaged and holding them accountable for helping you give, and leverage your organization. So guys, this is Tamika. I hope you like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and stay tuned for more Grow Your Nonprofit podcast episodes.